بسم الله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام.
It said something that you loved doing in Ramadan, and then set up like a reminder or something, an easy trigger to help you maintain that.
Yes, that sounds very familiar. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Fatin. So, Fatin, did you do that this week?
So I did do that, alhamdulillah. For me, hold on, I'm trying to turn on my video. I don't know what's going on. For me, with the kids always running around, it's easy not to be able to focus, obviously on your prayer, but also after prayer, you're like, okay, I have to feed them lunch. I have to do this, I have to do that. So something that I did before kids that I lost along the way was actually sitting down and doing tasbih and actually committing to it. And that was one of my goals during Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, I've been able to maintain it. So I'm hoping the trajectory continues, but that's something like simple that I knew that I could do that could reconnect me to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. I literally had the exact same one, and it was for the same reason, which is my kids came and it's like, oh, tasbih is not fard. I'll just, assalamu alaikum warahmatullah, assalamu alaikum warahmatullah, and then just go back right into the whole thing. So
Right.
That's something that I try to put effort towards, like, no, maintain it, Amani, do it. Yeah. That's awesome, mashallah. Did anybody else have something that they did this past week that they loved doing during Ramadan, and they found like writing it down actually kept them going and it made it easier, and having triggers, like choosing a trigger to make sure that that's what makes that action go?
I can go, Manny.
Yeah.
This is Lena. Assalamu alaikum. So last week's session really helped me kind of commit to certain things that I wanted to do, and they are kind of on a chart. There's like a group that I was a part of, and we did like a competition, and so we're continuing like ibadah together as a group. And so like one of like the person leading it created an Excel sheet, and so it's all written down, and you choose which ibadah you want to be consistent with. So it kind of was written for me, and for me the biggest one was Quran. I was trying to be consistent with it, like reading at least like 5 ayahs a day, but seeing that like I could read so much more in Ramadan, and then your session, like it put a fire under me, like to continue that. So now like the goal is to like ikhtim in 3 months instead of like 2 years. So
Yes.
And then also being on another like group of women who are checking in daily to say like, hey, I did my Quran. And it's like, and then when somebody's not feeling, like when I'm not feeling it, like I get encouragement from the group. So it's like it's written in that way kind of. So thank you for that session. It was really helpful. Alhamdulillah, it's been pretty good. So alhamdulillah.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really great, mashallah. And it's always nice to have other people with you, not only because we want other people to suffer with us, but I'm just kidding, but really so that we don't feel we're struggling alone. And there's that, that push, like, oh, they're doing it. That I can do it too. And I'm going to go back and tell them that I did it. And then, we're all kind of telling each other. And then if someone's slowing down, other people could be like, hey, where are you? Come on, let's do it, So that's really like a nice way to set yourself up. And that's awesome. So Lena, do you have any triggers or like something? Do you have a specific time when you read Quran so that like, oh, this time for sure I'll get it in, and if I don't do it at this time, I'll lose it? Do you have anything like that going on?
So I keep the mushaf on the end table in the living room area, and it's uncomfortable because I feel like we use that table so much and I don't want to disrespect it. But if it's not there, if it's not within reach where I could just ignore the shaitan and just do it right away, then if it's not there, then I'm probably not going to do it that day. And then the second thing is I don't let myself pray Isha until I read Quran, which is kind of weird. But for me, it works because then I'm worried that I won't pray. Well, I will pray, inshallah. But you know what I mean? Like, it's like, well, I have to pray Isha. So I have to read Quran so that I could pray Isha. It's like a rule that I made for myself.
Yeah.
It's not bid'ah, it's not a worship, but it's just like a way for me to force myself to do it. So it's right next to me all the time. and it's before Isha. So that's what we're doing.
Yes, and that's a really clever thing. First of all, the fact that it's in your face all the time, that's really good. And then the Isha thing is really, really good because you feel safe in that there's no negotiation about praying Isha in your mind.
Right, exactly.
But there has been negotiation in the past with like reading Quran, like you were saying, just like all of us with whatever it is we're struggling with. So that's your way of forcing it to be a non-negotiable, which is so cool. Yeah.
And then another thing too is I tell myself read quickly, like read correctly, but don't read so long because you kind of want to feel like, oh, I want to like enjoy it and take my time, but that's gonna slow me down in the long run. And for me to be more consistent in the long run, and I'm enjoying it too. It's not like I'm like, but it's not like this, like it's not Abdul Basit over here, It's just quickly and, it actually gets the job done and I feel much more empowered and I'm reading a lot more of the Quran that way too,
Yes.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome, mashallah. Okay, great. So today's topic is going to be, so remember the whole theme of this series is how do we take the momentum of Ramadan and take it into the next 11 months? And subhanAllah, we're already, we're almost like getting close to halfway through the first month after Ramadan. It's so crazy, like time really flies like crazy. Today's focus is going to be about taqwa. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 183, Allah tells us, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم, يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون. O you who have iman, who have faith, fasting has been prescribed to you as it was prescribed to those before you, so that you may attain taqwa. Right? So Ramadan is a month. Right? The purpose of Ramadan isn't necessarily fasting. It was the revelation of the Quran. That's the focus of Ramadan, is that Quran was revealed in that month. But then there's also fasting. So fasting is part of this month, right? And the purpose of fasting is taqwa, right? So if you want to think of it this way, the first Ramadan, where the Prophet ﷺ received revelation, he wasn't fasting. Right? There was no fasting in that month. And then later on, it became fard to fast in Ramadan. 2 years after the Muslims went to Medina is when Ramadan fasting became fard, right? But here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala telling us that He made it mandatory on us, just like He made it on people before us. For what reason? To attain taqwa. Taqwa, the word in Arabic, it comes from the word in Arabic that means to protect yourself or shield yourself. Okay, and what are we shielding ourselves from? We're shielding ourselves from Allah's punishment or displeasure. Okay, and how do we do it? The word taqwa includes all these meanings. We're shielding ourselves from Allah's displeasure and punishment through pleasing Allah, through fearing His displeasure, and having hope in His mercy. Right? So we want to be people who are constantly trying to please Allah, trying to stay away from displeasing Him, and constantly remembering and thinking about how merciful He is, right? So between fear and hope, we will find our taqwa. We will find that thing that drives us to move in a direction closer to Allah and to move away from things that Allah doesn't love, right? There is a dua in Arabic. I could send it to you guys inshallah later, but it's Ya Allah, let me love what you love and let me hate what you hate, right? And just to love what Allah loves makes it easier to do what He wants us to do, and to hate what He hates. If I hated chocolate, my life would be so much easier. You know what I mean? So if we hate what Allah hates, it would make it easier for us to stay away from those things, right? So how do we fuel ourselves with taqwa, right? Like the Energizer bunny, where it just keeps going and going and going, right? That if that battery was taqwa, oh my God, like that's what we want for ourselves. And Ramadan gave us a time to fill ourselves up with that taqwa, okay? So that we can keep going and going and going for the rest of the year, okay? The interesting thing here is this. Fasting is a physical thing, right? It's you don't eat, you don't drink, no intimacy, right? For 30 days, all day until Maghrib. And it's a physical thing. but what it automatically does is it feeds into our spiritual growth as well. Okay, so why does something so physical affect our spiritual? Which, by the way, anything that's going to affect us spiritually, positively, obviously, means it's going to enhance our discipline. It's going to enhance our self-control and our will and all of those things that we need to be strong, right? So what is it about fasting that enhances self-discipline and an increased fear and hope and wanting to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Number one, while we're fasting, we, by choice, stop doing things that we are normally allowed to be doing, okay? Think about our time now with the virus going around, right? When I get groceries, I still like either sanitize things or wash things like for 20 seconds under, with soap and water, or like I'll take strawberries and pour out the strawberries, throw away the container, and then wash my hands like crazy. Like I'm still just, I can't touch everything normally, right? Or if I go to Walmart now, I'm just like I almost, we all look like snobs, like, oh no, I'm not gonna touch that, and we don't want to touch things because we know that we could, we could grab the virus and take it home with us, right? So we're trying to avoid that. Can you guys wait for the day when we can go to Walmart or touch or sit on a bench at a park or something and not worry about touching anything? Just worry about getting a cold or like just it being disgusting or something like that, but not getting this crazy virus, right? That's going to feel like complete freedom. It's going to feel like a gift. Oh my God, I get to touch stuff, like that. And it's really something obviously we've taken for granted because it's never been a problem. So, when we think about food in Ramadan, we can't put food in our mouth during Ramadan, during fasting hours. And that minute we're allowed to, putting food in our mouth becomes like, oh my God, the freedom. Look at the freedom that's connected here, right? Drinking. We're allowed to drink everything except alcohol, right? And probably Pepsi because of the high fructose corn syrup, but that's a different story, okay? But in terms of haram, just don't touch the alcohol, right? But here comes Ramadan, here comes dawn, and you're not allowed to touch anything. And that second the sun sets and you put that water down your throat, oh my God, you're like, La ilaha illallah. The feeling of it is just amazing, right? So things we're normally allowed to do, right? In Ramadan, outside of Ramadan, we stop ourselves during the day, right? And so what does this mean? This means that not only when we're allowed to do it, the rest of the 11 months of the year, should we kind of constantly be connected to this sense of appreciation, but it also helps us to then say, okay, if I could stay away from things that I normally can have, and then I can normally have them for 11 months straight, right? Then it should be easier for me then physically to stay away from the things I'm not allowed to have, okay? And now this, of course, isn't just food, okay? Most of us, 99.96% of us, are not passing by like, what do you call it? Pork at, Tony's or what's it called? Any of these stores and like, oh, I wish I could just have some sausage. Like this is not like nothing's pulling me towards the pork, okay? Lucky Charms, I'm getting hasanat for staying away from that, okay? But I'm not dying to have some bacon, right? I'm not. So that's not a struggle for me or for most of us, right? Alcohol, I'm not interested. It smells like it's kharban, right? We've smelled it in different places, whatever. It doesn't even smell intriguing. I'm sure there's something enjoyable about it that I'm glad I'm not aware of, and I want to keep it that way, right? But it's not a struggle, right? For most of us. But then, subhanAllah, you have things outside of that are a struggle for us, right? And each of us is different, right? Whatever that struggle may be in terms of practicing taqwa, in terms of practicing consciousness of Allah, where we fear Him enough and love Him enough to want to please Him, that we stay away from things, or we're pushed towards doing good things, okay? Push towards doing good things could be something like you got into an argument with somebody you love, a close family member or a friend, and you feel very wronged. You feel like they've wronged you for years, and you snapped at them, you yelled at them, you were disrespectful towards them. you may conclude, okay, I know I feel bad about whatever's happening between us, but I still want to maintain good character. I don't want to yell, even though it feels really good to yell at them and tell them off and tell them who they really are. I in front of Allah, out of consciousness of Him and hope in His mercy and wanting to almost show off in front of Allah, right? It's like halal showing off. I want to be not the better person, but I want to be my better version, right? I want to be the person who comes and says, first of all, I'm so sorry. I will control myself. I will try my best not to respond to you like that again, right? That doesn't mean you're pulling back from like maybe the point you were making, or maybe you really are wronged and you need to talk about it. You know, talk about it. That's important. But just that element of good behavior, right? That element of I need to stay well behaved in front of Allah, there is where taqwa comes in. Because in those moments, we don't feel like being good. We don't feel like, responding in the best manner necessarily, right? How does fasting give us, feed into so fasting from food and water and intimacy, just 3 things. How does that then branch off into every other aspect of our life? I want to share an example something that happened with me, like an experience that happened with me. When I took this tajweed class, I took Nuraniya class with someone here, and it was like an intensive like kind of immersion class where I think it was 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row, like for like hours where you have a lunch break and, it's just like a long day. And when I was learning it from this teacher, something she focused on a lot through the Nuraniya technique is there's like this balance between in your recitation. So for example, if you're elongating certain parts of the Quran a certain number of seconds, then you have to consistently do that throughout, right? And if you're making it shorter, then you have to shorten it throughout. And it's like this balance and this consistency. And as she was going over and over and over and over, I can hear her doing it. I couldn't do it yet because even though you can hear it and you could kind of like a math problem, you understood it how the teacher did it. But now when you started doing it, you got stuck. So even when I couldn't do it, I could hear her doing it properly. And I was like, wow, that's so beautiful. Like just that balance and that ease and it almost felt like upright. It felt proper, something about it. It just felt correct. And I remember, I think to the second day, I was, we stopped for like a salah break. And I was in julus. I was sitting down to do the tashahhud. And I remember sitting up so straight, and usually I end up being like, like slouching like this. But I was sitting up so straight and so tall. And I remember making the connection between how she was reciting and me feeling like physically I had to sit up straight. I literally felt the effects of one completely different exercise with another, and that's exactly what these kinds of practices do for us. Where we're fasting for a whole month, it's supposed to seep into our daily life. We're supposed to find ourselves, wow, I reacted a little differently there. And it's not a coincidence. I just went through this crazy training. It's not a coincidence. I just felt differently, right? Ramadan is the epitome of mindset, right? And so I felt differently. I thought differently. I reacted differently, even if it's subtle, right? We're not meant to be like, change like people change in movies, like where it's like instant and it's all of a sudden. Like we are meant to change slowly but surely. Sometimes we change immediately and drastically because of some crazy event in our lives. That's possible too. But for the most part, even if we're just noticing small changes, that's huge. And I'm going to give you our action item for this week right now before I continue. And that is, for the next week, I want us to become conscious of little changes that we have experienced and enjoyed with Ramadan. So out of, whatever the effects of Ramadan has had on us, I want us to become conscious of them, right? So they're probably there more than we think, but we just have to pay attention, Okay, so what we could do is either in the morning or in the evening, write down, just think about different things that you feel maybe a little bit different about you. Maybe it's not necessarily an action or a behavior. Maybe it's a feeling. Maybe you find yourself caring more about humanity, right now. And it's no surprise with everything that's happening, but coming outside of Ramadan, maybe that feeling is enhanced, that, maybe I should be doing more for my brothers and sisters in the world, And subhanAllah, you guys, everything that's happening here in America with us is really, to me, it's such a wake-up call, because it's shaken us really at our core on so many levels, starting with this virus. The virus shut down everything. Literally, it shut down everything. And it shut down our lives. We stopped doing everything we're used to. All the luxury, not all the luxury, some of the luxury we're used to was snatched away in an instant, right? And then, this incident happens, and this poor man, like, may Allah help his family. He gets killed in this way. And subhanAllah, like, that shakes us to our core, And it's almost like, my God, like, there's a part of us that knows racism is still out there, but we're still shocked when we can see the level to which it can reach and which it does reach, especially because so many of us are not suffering in that way on a daily basis. We're not exposed to this kind of stuff, right? So these things are definitely a huge test for us, but it is also an opportunity for us to wake up and to really see that, the comfort that we live in, it really is a blessing. And it really is, it should only be, we should be grateful for it. We should absolutely enjoy it, but it should not distract us from being helpful towards others and other causes that are not necessarily interfering in our lives, in kind of, when things were normal, right? When everything was more peaceful, as far as we were concerned. Stuff was always going on, and stuff is always going on. But for a lot of us, it's not directly impacting us. But now we're really feeling the impact of a lot of things. And we should use that to say, okay, then what do I need to do to channel that energy and the emotions and the feelings that we're having, and the wakefulness that we should have after Ramadan, because that's what Ramadan does for us. It wakes us up to what is important, right? It wakes us up to what our lives should revolve around. And that is taqwa. It is consciousness of Allah. And so part of that is to make sure that no matter what we're doing, our lives are always better than somebody else's, right? Everyone in some way, their life is better than somebody else's life. And in that, how can I figure out a way to help someone else to make their life better, right? And we can't forget about it. We literally can never forget about this, and I'm talking to myself really more than anybody. So what does taqwa do? It gives us the ability and the opportunity to do things whether we feel like it or not, okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Asr, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Allah swears by time. He tells us that people are surely, at loss, except for those إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Those who have belief and iman and they do good deeds. Okay, so you see, same thing in Ramadan. Allah connected an action with a spiritual emotion, if that's even like a proper thing to talk about. A spiritual with a spiritual condition, okay, which is taqwa, right? So fast and it will increase your taqwa, right? الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. Those who have iman and do good deeds, right? It's two things that are together, and these are coupled together many times in the Quran. The beautiful marriage between these two, talk about like a match made in heaven, okay, no pun intended. But why iman and good deeds? Because they feed into each other, okay? Sometimes we have, we want to do good deeds. And as we do good deeds, it'll boost up our iman. Sometimes we're not in the mood to do a good deed. You don't feel like praying. You're tired. You're sleepy. You're exhausted. You're busy, whatever, right? But then your iman, right? Your taqwa, that feeling of that consciousness that Allah is watching me and I want to show him, right, who I am and that I care about him. That's going to kick in, and it's going to overcome your feeling of wanting to do it or not, right? So we don't have to feel like it to do it, right? We just have to do it. But the paradox here, the beautiful paradox is, the more we do it, the more we feel like it, okay? Ask anyone who's addicted to going to the gym, okay? And ask them how they started. It might have been that they had to make themselves go, And they came to a point where if they didn't go, it was like committing a sin. It felt horrible, you know? So it's the same way with doing good deeds. It boosts our iman, and boosting our iman will help us do good deeds. Boosting our iman by exposing ourselves more to Quran and tafsir and to dhikr and to all these things, right? And sometimes it's easier to change our behavior than it is to change that feeling, right? And sometimes it's easier to have the feeling but not really do much about the behavior. Okay, so we're given the opportunity to have both so that one could feed into the other. Okay, so anyway, okay, I'm going to end with a hadith that I found so beautiful. Prophet ﷺ said, do not hate one another, do not turn away from one another, and do not undercut one another. But be, O servants of Allah, brothers and sisters. A Muslim is the brother of a Muslim. He or she neither oppresses him, nor does he fail him. He neither lies to him, nor does he hold him in contempt. Taqwa is right here. And the Prophet ﷺ pointed at his heart 3 times. It's so amazing how the Prophet ﷺ, elaborated on all these different qualities, all these different characteristics that a believer is supposed to have, right? Someone who's conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he ends by basically calling that taqwa, right? And then telling us where it's found, okay? It's found here. Why? Because logically we know we shouldn't cheat people. We shouldn't talk about people. We shouldn't be mean to people. We shouldn't snap. We shouldn't do this. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't miss our salah. We should, all the things we know we should and shouldn't do. That's logical. But what's going to give us the boost and the move to do that? That is our taqwa. It's the consciousness that Allah is watching us, that he can punish us, but he also can forgive us. And that more than that, we want his forgiveness. We want, and we want to be able to see him and meet him on the day of judgment, right? One of the most amazing things to me is that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates this world that's really breathtaking, right? The trees, the sky never gets old, right? It's just stunning, especially when it's clear and there's some clouds, it's sunny out. I'll be driving and looking up and I have to remind myself to look at the road, right? It's just beautiful. And, we're promised that on the, in Jannah, we will be able to see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? And then that will be the best gift of any of the things that we get in Jannah. And that is something absolutely to look forward to. And in our looking forward to that, we can use that drive, that oh my God, I'm so excited to meet you, Ya Allah. I'm so excited to see you, Ya Allah. I want to see the one who gave me life. I want to see the one who gave me my kids, or my amazing job, or my amazing family, or my amazing spouse, or my amazing anything, my ability, to be athletic, or whatever it is that you have. I want to see the one who created the mountains, right? I want to see the one who did all this. And we can get there, inshallah. We really can. And a huge part of that recipe is taqwa. It's how do I engage myself constantly, as much as I can, so that I am in my decision making, I'm putting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the forefront. Not what feels good to me, or what I prefer, or what would be more convenient or easy. Take the easiest route that Allah is okay with. That's okay, right? I love doing that. I love being like, okay, what's the easiest thing here? That's Prophet ﷺ told, did that. So I take that and I run with it. But this is one of the major reasons to try to nourish taqwa inside of us, in Ramadan or outside of Ramadan. And I will end with that. If anybody has any comments or questions, now is a great time to jump in. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys all for joining me today. Jazakallah khair. Inshallah, I will see you guys all next week. Same time, 4 o'clock. Inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum.